The Nature Conservancy labeled deer browse worse for our forests than global warming by stating, in our opinion, no other threat to forested habitats is greater at this point in time. Not lack of fire, not habitat conversion, not climate change. Only invasive exotic insects and diseases have been comparable in magnitude. We can argue about which threat is more significant than another, but no one who walks the eastern forest today can deny the impact of deer to forest condition. Deer and humans have probably been influencing the forest since the glaciers receded. Why are humans such an important part in the forest is because we have thumbs and we have the ability to light fires, whether it's in a combustion engine, open woods burning. What that does is that manipulates how sunlight shines into our forest. And when you do that, you basically manipulate forest age class, species composition, and size of what's growing there. And in turn, that influences what wildlife are present. So, on the other hand, deer are widespread consumers. They are probably the biggest consumer of plant life in the eastern forest. An average doe can eat about 4 to 6 pounds per day of browse. If you were to go in your woods and pick 4 to 6 pounds of buds, that would add to a lot of tree seedlings in the forest. So a lot of you might be wondering, there's not many deer where I live, up in maybe Slide Mountain area or in Denning or Hardenberg. And you're right, there isn't many deer in those areas. But because there's such a mature forest canopy, very little sunlight gets into the understory, and 3 to 7 deer per square mile, very few deer, can keep up with anything that grows. So if you start seeing nothing but fern growing in your understory, that's a problem of too many deer. There's not enough to eat because they don't like the fern. So what happens when there's an imbalance between what the humans are doing, not providing enough food, and what the deer are doing? Then there's an imbalance. Too little food. A great analogy would be cows and pasture. None of us would be surprised if, we had so many cows, but too little pasture. We would expect our pasture to be grazed, right? We either have to reduce herd size or we have to increase pasture. Otherwise, we're going to degrade that pasture. Same thing in a forest. Deer are just like cows in some ways not. But in some ways, they still need food. So what are the impacts inside and outside the forest? And that's what you're going to hear today. It's not just forest related. This affects anyone. Doesn't matter if you're a vegetable gardener or you're a vegan or you don't hunt or whatever. You're paying more for those apples at the store because the orchardist had to put up an 8-foot fence around 100 acres. He's going to transfer that cost to you, the consumer, because he had to pay for that nice fence. So it's not just forest related, and that's what's so cool about the deer issue is it really jumps leaps and bounds into everything else. So the morning is going to we're going to have a couple speakers talk about the impacts and how some municipalities have tried to deal with deer impact, and also the impacts on ecosystems and how that relates to people and deer and whatnot. And the afternoon is going to deal more with the solutions. And that's the conversation that we're going to be having.